Does wrestling really need an off-season? Well, apparently, Roman Reigns seems to like the idea. But I don't know about that. Sup y'all, welcome back to the review space. In this video, I want to discuss this small little piece of news, little tidbit news. I was checking out, what is this, dailyddt.com, checking out some, latest rumors and wrestling-related rumor mill type news and little small pieces of information here and there. And I read this interesting thing here. Roman Reigns wants an off-season, according to a recent interview with TalkSport. Roman Reigns discussed the possibility of an off-season in WWE, and he didn't fully say that he was, listen, like, I really want an off-season in wrestling, and I'm totally against having an all-year-round, kind of product. But he did have some positive attitude towards having an off-season. He did basically say that, look, it's the way it is, and he basically says, I'm never opposed to trying something new. The formula has worked in sports entertainment, is a what have you done for me lately industry. Unfortunately, we don't have an off-season like most sports or other kinds of forms of entertainment or competition. But, I think if we could make it work, it would be a great benefit to our performers and our fans as well. It would definitely give our performers another couple of months, if not a full quarter, to rest up and recover, not only just from a physical standpoint, but creatively. Okay, so that's basically what Roman Reigns said. And that's according to dailyddt.com reporting that on from what is it, TalkSport or whatever. So anyway, this off-season thing has been a topic not so much controversial per se, but just something that's thrown out there as a possibility, not necessarily something that would happen right away or something that would even be considered by WWE or Vince McMahon, because God knows that this guy is essentially, I don't want to call him a slave driver, but that's what he is. He's somebody that treats his talent like they are just robots, automatons, and individual people that he can promote out there, because that's what he is. He's got the promoter's mentality. He's a guy that puts out these different people for drawing money into his company. Somebody that's a big star, somebody that looks good, or somebody that's really attractive, or really unattractive, or somebody who just looks like a freak show. Because that's what professional wrestling is. That's what pro wrestling is. It's something that is basically a business. They gotta draw money. And for wrestling, it's always been year-round, at least a wrestling company like WWE. It's a year-round promotion. They don't really have any time off. They don't really have that. And they're always constantly touring. They're always on the road because they always got to draw and make money and go somewhere else and perform for people all around, whoever wants to, pay money to see them live and buy the merchandise and go to where people, there's a demand for wrestling. There's a demand to see it live and pay tickets and buy tickets to see these wrestlers perform. They're basically like circus animals. That's what it is. That's what professional wrestling is. It's basically a traveling circus show. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. That's just the way it is. It started from the carnival, carny days, back in the old days, and drawing in, it's a side attraction. And then it evolved into an actual show, an actual product that is put out there by people like Vince McMahon, a promoter, somebody that invests a lot of money and a lot of time in producing and spending a lot of money hiring different people that might have some charisma or mic skills or size or good looks or whatever, have some kind of talent that he can promote. And then thus he can draw money and make money off of those people. That's what Vince McMahon is. He's a ruthless businessman. He's somebody that wants to promote, and make money off of it and profit off of it. No different than what he's doing with the XFL. What he tried to do with the XFL back in the early 2000s is what he basically did with wrestling for many, many years. Because that's all he knows. That's his life. That's his lifestyle. That's what he inherited from his dad, his promoter dad. He comes from that lineage of, I'm gonna exploit performers and individual stars and different kind of people that have some kind of drawing ability and marketability, like a Hulk Hogan or a Stone Cold or a Rock or a John Cena or a Roman Reigns, that I can make money off of. So this idea of having an off season is just not a thought. Not in his mind, not in these people's minds that are in charge of wrestling, because they want to keep drawing money year round. They want to keep going forward year round and keep at it, always on the road, always on tour, always on the road, always doing shows and house shows, and they got to have those big events and those big pay-per-views every month. So I don't think there's going to be an off-season anytime soon. And also the idea, I've always disliked the idea of comparing it to sports, like actual, real, legitimate sports, like an NBA off-season or an NFL off-season or NHL or soccer or whatever, or whatever kind of sport, baseball. They'll have an off-season, so some time off, the players and the athletes get some time off, and then until it's time for the season to start up again. Wrestling doesn't really have that, with the exception of the whole TV season, where like Lucha Underground will have different seasons, and WOW, Women of Wrestling, different TV shows might have taping seasons, and then they'll have time off and stuff like that. But for a major company like WWE and pretty much every other promotion, they don't really have time off, because it's not actual sports. It's not legitimate sports. That's another big thing, is comparing pro wrestling, which is basically the scripted, predetermined Cirque du Soleil mixed with soap opera that isn't actual, sports, that doesn't rely on actual legitimate stats and wins and losses and that kind of thing, and then ultimately culminating in a climactic final championship match, kind of like the NBA or the NHL or the MLB or whatever. The final tournament, right, to become the champion, the NBA champions, or the NHL winners of the Stanley Cup winner, and trying to get the Super Bowl and all that with the NFL. They don't have anything like that. Yeah, they got WrestleMania, but WrestleMania just happens to be a big show. It's the end product of the TV season. That's all it is. The end of the storyline of Becky Lynch, or the climactic end of the big feud between Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey, for example, or the climactic end between the feud between Stone Cold and Shawn Michaels back in 1998. WrestleMania 14 in 1998, and so on and so forth. That's what it's basically is. It's just the climactic end to that particular season of WWE. So that's all it really is. So that's what WrestleMania is not this legitimate sports event. It's not the Super Bowl. It's not the NBA championships. It's not the NHL playoff championship, Stanley Cup championship, or the whatever, the FIFA soccer tournament championship match. It's nothing like that. Wrestling is fake, professional wrestling, I should say. And I use the word fake with all due respect. I don't mean it in a disrespectful way, but in a way that this is a scripted TV show. This is more like Game of Thrones. Or even better comparison, this is more like soap opera. Or even something like anime. You know what I'm saying? Anime is an ongoing thing. Like an anime, a TV show like Naruto, for example, or a TV show like South Park, or The Simpsons, they keep going. They keep going and going and going and going to keep producing product, to keep producing TV shows. Because when you make TV shows, they generate ad revenue and income. So now you have advertising revenue and all that. So you have product on TV, and then you have these big advertisers spending money on it, and spending big money. And you have these TV channels, like Fox, for example, spending big money and investing a lot of money into these TV shows. So they pay, WWE and Vince McMahon a lot of money to produce TV shows that feature wrestlers. These individual stars that can potentially draw money and be somebody that you got to watch TV, you got to tune in next week and next week and next week and so on and so forth. And that's a year-round thing. These are more TV characters instead of actual, sports athletes. We're not talking about Michael Jordan here, or Charles Barkley, or whoever is the famous NHL players now. You know what I mean? We're not talking about these guys. We're not talking about actual athletes that need time off. That they have an off season. These are more TV characters. Like, they're just acting. Yes, it's very athletic, and yes, they do suffer injuries every now and then, and it is very physically demanding. I get that. The bigger issue, I think, is that instead of having an off-season for the whole crew, the whole entire WWE roster, have it for individual stars. Like, for example, let's say Roman Reigns needs, he gets a couple of months off, just to have a rest. Imagine if CM Punk got a couple of months off every single year from wrestling. He'd probably still be wrestling right now, if CM Punk had that time off. Or any of these other wrestlers, so that they would have some rest in between taping and TV tapings and live shows and live events. And that goes for the men and the women. Some time off. Whether it's a couple of months. Maybe 1 month in the first 6 months, and then 6 months go by, or not? 5 months, and then that 6 month is time off, and then another 5 months, and then time off. You can kind of divide it in between certain months. So it doesn't have to be 2 months in a row. Although that would probably be that's a pretty cool thing too. It's almost like summer vacation, So I think individual wrestlers, and it doesn't matter. It could be undercarders, it could be cruiserweights, it could be main eventers, all the way up and down the roster. Each wrestler should have at least a couple of months off from wrestling every single year. I think that would be a good thing. Not necessarily together as a roster where they completely stop filming, but let's say, like, the next couple of months, Dean Ambrose gets some time off. Or Seth Rollins, Or somebody else that can't even... somebody like Mustafa Ali. Somebody who needs it. Somebody who was just recently injured or has to have some time off. And I'm not even just talking about the injury thing, but somebody who just needs some time. Every single year, every wrestler in the WWE roster should have at least a couple of months off. And it'd be a cool thing too if they can have time off in their own personal choice for whatever specific month. Like, okay, so for example, this year in 2019, let's say Asuka asks for, hey, listen, I want to take some time off on October and November, and then you give it to her, October and November. So that's her specific time off, and that's it. Or somebody like Becky Lynch. I want to take some time off between June and July. So you give it to her, for that particular year. And I think that's a lot easier. I think it's a lot easier for that individual wrestler. Or let's say somebody like Braun Strowman. Braun Strowman goes, hey, I want to take some time off. I want to take time off in September and December. September and December, he's off those particular couple of months. And that's it. So they happen to be off that particular month, but then they come back. And they're not constantly, on the road, at least in those 2 months. So they have at least a couple of months off. I think that's a good thing, and it doesn't have to be the whole roster. Now, how they go about it, how they organize that's up to them. I'm not like, I don't have a whole plan set for these people because it's just an idea. But I think it's a pretty cool idea. That they don't have to go full-time all the time. They can go full-time the rest of the year, but they can have some time off. Just those 2 months, those 2 glorious months, no pun intended with Bobby Roode, but they can have 2 months off, and that's it. So they're not always constantly on the road and always, putting their body on the line and just constantly, putting all that mileage on their bodies and constantly, getting bumps and taking bumps. At least they have 2 months off that whole year. That's pretty good. That's fair, Maybe they deserve more. I don't know, but WWE is never gonna really. I don't think they're ever gonna do that. At least not like when Vince McMahon is around. I just don't see that happening anytime soon. And so, it's more like a dream. It's more like a fantasy at this point. And I think it would definitely benefit a lot of the people on the roster, but I don't think it's gonna happen anytime soon. So. That's it for this episode of the Review Space. Just want to give my quick thoughts on this time off thing. Check out the rest of the channel for more wrestling videos, especially my video about who is the greatest wrestler of the 2010s decade. That's already up. And also more recently, who is who is better between Becky Lynch and Charlotte. That's another interesting topic. And also, a bunch of other fun topics in there, such as does Kofi Kingston deserve to main event WrestleMania 35 and become the WWE champion? And if Roman Reigns and Batista are main event caliber champions. And of course, most recently, the Ronda Rousey comments regarding, fake scripted WWE and, totally, going after the fans and totally setting herself apart from this fake wrestling and all that stuff. Very controversial with a lot of, really colorful language. So that's already uploaded. Subscribe to the channel, click on the bell button for the latest notifications, and until next time, peace.